What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut mixtape by Gudda Gudda. Basically, this project is called Guddaville and it came out in the fall of 2009. The thing about this particular project is Lil Wayne was blowing up, and so the thing about this particular project was after Lil Wayne blew up in 2008 with the Carter 3 and Dedication 3, he started to uncork his Young Money crew, the first of which was Drake in early 2009 with the So Far Gone mixtape. And that was a pretty dope one as far as that pitch can happen, and he dominated summer 2009 with The Best I Ever Had, and that sort of. And Drake dominated summer 2009 with two hit songs, Best I Ever Had, and then Every Girl was a Young Money song. But particularly, there was also a Young Money kickoff that started to happen about the summer of 2009, and Gudda Gudda was one of the first ones to drop a mixtape throughout the fall of 2009 before the Young Money album rollout kind of started. Now, particularly, I didn't know that Bedrock was on Gudda Gudda's mixtape. It makes me question if it was originally Gudda Gudda's song or something like that, because there was a song off of Back to Guddaville from 2010, the second of that series, the second of the Guddaville series that wound up on Lil Wayne's I Am Not a Human Being album. So it's kind of the concept. The Willy Wonka song was originally on Gudda Gudda's album. So this makes me question if Bedrock was originally a Gudda Gudda song, because to my knowledge, this is like the first appearance of it. This came out in September 2009, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this concept, because really Bedrock came out as a single in like the winter of 2010 as far as that pitch can happen, like January, February 2010. It's a good concept to see it as far back as September 2009. It's just an interesting aspect kind of about it, but that's kind of the format of it. This mixtape didn't really have a single as far as that pitch can happen, but this is a pretty solitary project by Gudda Gudda. I'd have to say it's basically like a taste of like dirty South hip hop, just with a little bit of mixtape. This is a good taste of dirty South hip hop with some mixtape sense kind of thrown in. But the thing about this particular project is just the fact that it's trendy to like mid late. The thing about this particular project is it's trendy to mid late 2009, so it doesn't sound like a Rick Ross album or a Jeezy album or something like that. Some of those type pitches of folks that were popular just 8, 9, 10 months just prior to this particular album, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept to kind of get this just because it's trendy to 2009, early 2010 as far as that pitch kind of happens. Less kind of dirty South hip hop, less dirty South hip hop, more kind of Young Money type pizzazz as far as that pitch can happen, because they kind of fleshed out a sound in like the early 2010s as far as that pitch can happen. They had a lot of songs that were pretty similar to Bedrock and stuff like that. Roger, Every Girl, Bedrock, Roger That, some of the singles off the Young Money album from late 2009, I have to suppose. But Gudda Gudda did a pretty good job with bolstering like this particular mixtape with some hits, and I would definitely have to say it's just a shame that this particular project doesn't have like music videos or like a single attached to it. I'd have to say it's a good concept to get this particular project, but it's pretty low key as far as that sense gonna happen. But I look after it, it's got some quality on here. It's definitely an above average mixtape. Although I'd have to say I think I like Back to Guddaville, the second one in the series, a little bit more. But it's been a couple years since I listened to that. It's been a couple years since I full blown listened to that project, but I still do listen to it oftenly, I'd have to say. But just in terms of like the full project, just as a whole, I'd have to say it's kind of the concept that one was just a little bit more enjoyable in like a certain sense, but both these are pretty good and impactful. I'd have to say this is a great 1-2 punch to get Guddaville and then Back to Guddaville. These are both pretty dope ones. Just would have to suppose just kind of the concept about it, but yeah, I did. So Back to Guddaville is on this channel. I reviewed that a couple years ago, so you can check that out. It's in the Lil Wayne playlist, or just search for it in the YouTube or Google search. You'll be able to find it. I am eventually going to make like a Gudda Gudda playlist. I'd have to suppose it's a good concept kind of get that, but I'd have to say pretty particular project. So I'm just going to go ahead and recommend. There's 20 songs on this particular mixtape. I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 13 and a half songs I recommend on here. So basically almost 14. Bedrock is an almost song just because that's on the Young Money album. You can find that just on that particular album. I just recommend it on there, I'd have to say, but it's still, that's 13 and a half songs out of 20 is pretty damn good, I'd have to suppose. So we'll go ahead and recommend these. Basically, the 13 and a half songs I recommend would be I'm Gone, Getting to the Money, I'm the Man, No One Else Matters, Demolition Freestyle Part 1, Red Devils, The Dungeon, What a Girl, Sacrifice, Raw, Demolition Freestyle Part 2, Young Money Hospital, Murder Outro, and then the almost song would be Bedrock. So it's basically about 14. So to talk about some of these on here. Basically, before I get to the original songs, I'm going to talk about the freestyles and stuff like that, because these are some pretty solid ones. Basically, Demolition Freestyles Part 1 and 2 are some Lil Wayne freestyles where he just does like the mixtape type fare like he does on Dedication 3 and Dedication 2 and some of those type ones. It's a pretty good pitch. It's basically like a standard Lil Wayne type fare. I mean, Gudda Gudda is on here and it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that, but for the most part, Gudda Gudda's on like maybe the first 50 seconds of the song. Lil Wayne does the rest. Gudda Gudda does like the first 45, 50 seconds, and then Lil Wayne does the rest of the song. He was on fire in 2009, so it's the rightful kind of thing to kind of have that happen. He just particularly eviscerates these songs with some interesting pitches just because years before, I mean, it was recent, probably back 2017, 2018 that I discovered some of these particular type songs, but it's an interesting pitch to kind of get these because these basically feel like dedication songs by Lil Wayne. It's a good pitch to kind of hear. It's a good pitch to kind of have Lil Wayne eviscerate these songs and other folks' projects. So it's basically, if you do like Dedication 3, Dedication series by Lil Wayne, some stuff like that, these are some extra kind of songs. Demolition Freestyle Part 1 and Part 2 are some nice ones. But then he does that again on Young Money Hospital. This is another highlighted one. This is off of Plies Beat, so this is another good concept to kind of get some of these. These are just some excellent kind of highlights on here, just some good pitches that just reminded the Dedication days or Young Money type days where Gudda Gudda would be on Lil Wayne's Dedication 3 and stuff like that, and later projects that he would be on, like No Ceilings and some of those type ones. Just some good concepts, going to get those. And then Bedrock, there's another song, I'm the Man, is a pretty good one. This is off the D4L beat, I'm the Man, off the D4L album. I'd have to say it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that. Gudda Gudda is pretty solid at freestyling, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this particular one. He almost damn near makes this song his own. He's definitely probably one of the better rappers I've heard on this particular instrumental, I'd have to say. I think he can outstrip Shawty Lo and some of those type folks as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Probably on the same, I mean, Young Jock did this beat also. It's pretty good pitch to kind of get that, but I'd say Gudda Gudda is probably a little bit more of a lyricist than Young Jock. I'd have to say Young Jock's more swag rap. It's a pretty good concept to get this one. Gudda Gudda does a pretty good freestyle on there, so it's a good pitch. So to talk about some of the songs I recommend, the original songs on here, basically there's about 9 songs of these, of that particular atmosphere. So Getting to the Money is the obvious highlight off this particular mixtape. This is basically one of the, Getting to the Money is one of the mixtape's best songs. I'd have to say just an overall highlighted one. It's a pretty distinct Gudda Gudda song and probably one of his best songs just out of his whole catalog. I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept to get this song. It's a pretty good song to get this particular song from Gudda Gudda as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is like an excellent kind of midday commute bop, I'd have to say, in like a hustler sense, I would have to suppose. So this is a good concept for like some makeshift just within a standard. So Getting to the Money is a pretty good concept in like a hustler sense to kind of get some makeshift just within that aspect of kind of having some of that. Just some midday kind of commute and commerce as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just got done with work, something like that, or just getting to the money like the song says, something like that. Just the aspect of kind of, just the concept of being money hungry and stuff like that. Just getting the errands done, getting towards it, just the aspect of just getting ready to have a recreational type time, just the last little bit, just lacing up, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, some stuff like that, just the last momentary bits of just kind of putting the pieces together of the jigsaw, those particular type moments. This is just a very much an in-between type song, I'd have to say, and it's also kind of an errand song. So I just look after the concept of this particular pitch, just lacing things up, getting the concepts of it taken care of. This is a pretty good one to kind of have when you're getting ready to have a night, I'd have to say. This is a good concept when you just have like maybe 20 or 40 more minutes of stuff that you have to do before you're getting ready to have a smoke sesh, some stuff like that. Call up the ladies, get ready to have a night out and outing and house party and some stuff like that. I have to suppose it's a real good concept. Just kind of be in car, just kind of have some car traverse in like an evening sense of just kind of like some wind down in like a work sense, but revved up in like a getting ready to get crunk sense, I'd have to suppose. So that's a pretty nice one. I'm Gone is a pretty good highlight. This has Tyga and Lil Flip on there. And oh yeah, Getting to the Money has 2 Chainz on that particular song. He was known as Titty Boy back in those days, but I'd have to say it's still a pretty good concept to get that particular song. I'm Gone has Tyga and Lil Flip on there, which I want to say that Lil Flip and Gudda Gudda actually dropped a full-blown album back in 2009. I'm going to have to get to that one eventually, but we'll have to see about that. But this is a pretty good song here. This is like a glittery kind of nightclub gem, I'd have to say. This is like a basic kind of vanilla club energy that this song particularly kind of has, but it's a good dap and entry kind of hit. So I definitely appreciate this particular one. This is just kind of a very, I'm Gone kind of has like a here and there kind of hook, but it's a very vanilla club song, I have to suppose. This is just kind of an entry type, dap type song just to kind of have just within the sense of just showing up and kind of the initial kind of stuff of just socializing, that sort of aspect of just kind of the thrills of just the excitement of getting there and some of those type pitches of just the entry type stuff and the socials as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Just some good concepts. Pretty good nightclub song, I'd have to suppose. Not quite as eviscerating as like other songs on like other Young Money albums and Lil Wayne projects and stuff like that, but it's just a good basic kind of song. I definitely like some of these basic type songs. Gudda Gudda definitely had some of those pitches just to kind of have within that, so it's a good concept. This is just a basic kind of vanilla club type song to kind of have just for the entry type stuff. Pretty good concept. No One Else Matters is a pretty good highlight. I'm not sure if this was an original song somewhere else, but it's interesting that Bow Wow's on here, and then there's another cat on here, which I think is like Jaw Mills or something like that. Or it's like Ya Boy, something like that. It's a pretty good song to kind of get that particular one. This is like a glossy kind of superb hook, I'd have to say. It's like a gleaming ladies bop, I would definitely feel like, and this is just a social time and it has some suaveness about it. is what I'd say. It's a pretty highlighted one. This is definitely probably one of the most glistening beats on the whole particular mixtape. I'd have to say just a real suave type one, something I'd expect out of Jamie Foxx or Fabulous, some of those type folks. This real glissy type hook. This works pretty well. This has some commercial appeal about it. Definitely Gudda Gudda does a pretty good job. It's the clean version on this particular mixtape. Unfortunately, would have liked to have heard the explicit version a little bit better. At least in Gudda Gudda's version is the clean version. I'd have to say it's still pretty highlighted one. Definitely has some commercial sheen about it. It was a pretty good bop to kind of have here. So I definitely appreciate this one. Just it has a real suave type feel. It's interesting kind of get Gudda Gudda on these type songs. Red Devils is a pretty good highlight. This is like a vintage kind of Young Money song. I'd have to say it reminds me of I'm Not a Human Being by Lil Wayne. Definitely. This is just a pretty good tune for that. And this is just a shrill kind of rickety club hit, I'd have to suppose. This one pretty much has like a shrill type sense. It's real horrific almost. It's not quite a full-blown horrorcore type tune, but it definitely has some like spook of an edge towards it. This kind of reminds me of, if you definitely like the I'm Not a Human Being album by Lil Wayne, despite the fact that that came out a year later, it really has some similar pitches to that one. Just some songs like Willy Wonka, some of those type ones. Maybe even Bill Gates. I think that's the song that it reminds me of. That's the song Red Devils reminds me of, is Bill Gates off of Lil Wayne's Human Being album from 2010, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get that one. The Dungeon is a nice highlight, definitely. This is like another vanilla nightclub highlight, I'd have to say. This is like a dope kind of synthy beat, I'd have to suppose. And this is just good for a regular evening dap. And just this song is just some regular evening dap pizzazz, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good highlighted one to kind of get. This one's pretty similar. The Dungeon is a pretty good 1-2 punch to kind of have with I'm Gone, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good highlighted one to kind of get within that sense. These are both some kind of entry kind of vanilla nightclub type tunes just for the dap getting and stuff like that. Just the initial kind of social kickoffs and just stuff like that. These are just some basic kind of tunes and bops as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Pretty good highlighted ones. And a lot of these are posse songs. There's a good chunk of like the Young Money crew on this particular album or on this particular mixtape. Apart from Drake, he's the only real one that only shows up on just like Bedrock. Nicki Minaj is on here the second least. She's on here a couple of times. She's on one song, I Always Love You, and then Bedrock. But apart from that, but there is a pretty good chunk of like the Young Money crew. I like that Mac Main's on here and folks like that. Just some good pitches kind of get some of these folks. Pretty good concept. What a Girl's a pretty good highlight. This is like a Malays Ladies song, I'd have to say. This is a real song, definitely. I'd have to suppose this is some real talk type tune just within that pitch, I'd have to say. And it's like an evening. The song is good for some evening car traverse, I would definitely have to feel like. And this is just some mixtape kind of makeshift. So this is another surprise. Apart from No One Else Matters, this is another surprise from Gudda Gudda. He was kind of getting some commercial type tunes. It's just interesting kind of get some of that pitch because most of the time Gudda Gudda felt like more of like Lil Wayne's wingman, some stuff like that. But it's not to say he's wingman in terms of quality. It's just the aspect that he just isn't typically kind of on more commercial type songs with like some buttery smooth hooks and stuff like that. But Chanel from Young Money does a pretty good job with What a Girl. Chanel from Young Money does a pretty good job with What a Girl. It's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that particular one. It's just a good aspect of just like some makeshift kind of within a car traverse type sense within the evening sense. This is great for like 5:30, 6:30 p.m. something like that. Just 5:30, 6:30 p.m. something like that. Just a real song for the ladies as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just would have to suppose good highlighted one. Sacrifice is more typical of like Guddaville as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is more of like a shrill and kind of crazy horrorcore type gem, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good highlight within that sense. This has a great Lil Wayne cameo on here. Mac Main does a pretty good job on this song. Also a pretty good pitch to get this particular one. This is just good. This song is just great for like some moonlight kind of night outings, I'd have to suppose. So this one just feels like a howling at the moon kind of spook of a song, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good highlight to kind of get this particular one. Definitely needed more shrill songs like this off this particular album. I feel like apart from Sacrifice and Red Devils, there's not too many shrill type songs as far as that pitch kind of happens with this. Just kind of a concept of getting some more of those horrorcore type tunes. I definitely feel like this Guddaville could have been a lot more of a shrill type project just to really have seen some nightmares type stuff. I mean, it has like that in like small taste, but I'd have to say it's a pretty balanced kind of southern type album. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept. It does a lot of things, covers some facets on here. It does have some makeshift and stuff like that. It does have some nightclub songs. Does have some mild kind of shrill kind of horrorcore just within that sense, and it does have like some kind of like lady song stuff like that, just some of those type pitches, and it does have some mixtape freestyles just within that aspect of getting like some outings. It's some pretty good concepts, but Raw is a pretty good highlighted one, definitely. This is like a sophisticated night venue fun of a song, I'd have to say. This is more composed. This is a more composed track, I'd have to say. Definitely like the concept of it, and this is just some fun times out, I'd have to suppose, and it's definitely a pretty thrilling social of a time, I'd have to say. So I definitely like this one. This is something I would expect out of Drake or someone like that, or Rick Ross, especially around 2009, 2010 when he was starting to do more songs like Super High and some of those type pitches. Super High and Maybach music, some of those more suave type pitches just within the aspects. It's an interesting concept to kind of get this particular one. Raw has a pretty nice ritzy sample on that particular song. Definitely feels like a Don Cannon almost. It definitely feels like an East Coast type beat. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept to get that particular one. I'd have to say. And then Murder Outro is another pretty good highlight. And then Murder Outro is another pretty good highlight off this tape. I'd have to suppose this is like an electro kind of evening gloss of a song. I'd have to say this is like a decent dance hit. I would suppose definitely. And it's just a good rumbler and icebreaker cut. I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept to get this particular one. Despite the fact that this is an outro, this is a pretty good icebreaker. I'd have to say it's a good concept to kind of get this particular one. It's just a good rumbler and bubbler of the song. This is just a real good rumbler and bubbler of a song. I'd have to say pretty good concept to kind of get this particular just shrillness that just kind of goes along with that. I'm actually surprised that Gudda Gudda didn't have more songs like this just in like the standard cuts off this particular mixtape, because this there definitely could have stood to been some songs like this. There's like a song called In the Club like by 50 Cent, something like that, just a nightclub type song, just something within that pitch to kind of have a little bit of electro type bounce and like a good kind of glossiness, just something of like just something to kind of have some electricity towards this particular tape, because this is probably one of the most electro type, because this one's probably one of the most electric type songs on the whole tape, I'd have to suppose. For the most part, Gudda Gudda is kind of in the club, but he doesn't really have like the dance club type numbers, doesn't really have like the festive kind of shrill high energy high octane type numbers. Not to say that this is not an electric album, it's just kind of in the sense that it just doesn't have like the Gudda Gudda leans on more chill type vibes and more sheer lyricism, I'd have to suppose. So it's a good concept to kind of get that, but it's just kind of the concept that it just doesn't have like the sheer electricity of much songs apart from maybe Sacrifice and Murder Outro, I'd have to suppose. It's just kind of the concept about that. So to talk about some of the songs I didn't recommend on here, basically some of these particular type ones like Every Sound and like some of these particular type ones like Every Sound and Too Blessed to Be Stressed are just like some soulful type ones that just really don't work at all. These are just some pretty horrific type beats, and horrific I mean that in a bad way. Just these songs just completely belly flop and don't do a good job of establishing the mixtape in like an exciting sense, I'd have to say. And then another one like that is the Cannonball remix. This was just kind of a poor one that was trying to be like a soulful type tune that just didn't work that well. I feel like the only real soulful type song that pulled it off that well was just Raw. That's really about the only real true one that really highlighted just within that sense of doing it correctly. Always Love You, despite the fact of having a Nicki Minaj feature on here, was just not compelling enough to really pull off that particular vibe. It was trying to be like a more endearing type song for the ladies as far as that pitch kind of happens, but it just didn't really pull it off in terms of the attractiveness of like the production and overall song composition, I'd have to say. So that was kind of a poor one. And then Welcome to Guddaville was just kind of like a poor. And then Welcome to Guddaville was just kind of like a dramatic intro. I mean, that one almost pulled off like the horrorcore type vibes. If you like songs like Sacrifice, you like songs like Red Devils, this is one that at least kind of has some of that dramatic flair of like an East Coast type pitch, just with like some of that horrific type feels, but this wasn't quite as full blown compelling. I feel like it's probably like a 5.5, 6 out of 10 in terms of quality of like the productions on there. That could almost be an almost song, but I just don't know how many oftenly times I would listen to it. I just feel like the dramaticness of it was just not quite as executed, and like the overall suave factor and just overall this affability and charm that it particularly kind of had to really warrant fucking with that particular song. Not to say it's a horrible song, it's just the sheer kind of compelling factor was just not quite as high on that particular one to kind of full blown recommend, I'd have to say. So that's kind of the concept about it. But basically, me recommending about 13 and a half songs out of 20 off this particular mixtape, damn near 14. The reason why it's not 14 is because Bedrock is on the Young Money album, so you might as well just get the Young Money album, I'd have to say. It's a good concept to kind of get that. So 13 and a half out of 20. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like an 8.25 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty solitary as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is definitely some solid stuff. This is a pretty balanced project. Has a good amount of stuff on here, some good songs like What a Girl and stuff like that, and No One Else Matters. It has some commercial type pitch, has some good horror type tunes like Sacrifice and Red Devils, has some good nightclub type songs like I'm Gone, and like another one off of here like The Dungeon, some of those type pitches that I have to suppose has a good in between type songs. It does have some car traverse type songs like Getting to the Money. I know there's like another one on here that's particularly kind of like that. Forget which one it is. Murder Outro has some pretty good dance vibes about it, just within an electro kind of nightclub kind of sense, I'd have to suppose. So there are some pretty good highlighted ones just off this particular tape, I'd have to say. Raw has some good ritziness and suaveness, so it's just a good concept to kind of get this. So the social score about this particular mixtape, I'm going to go ahead and give this, so the social score of this particular mixtape, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score of this mixtape like an 8.75 out of 10. I feel like it has some good bops on here, just a lot of social affability as far as that pitch kind of happens. Gudda Gudda does step out and have some social time as far as that pitch kind of happens. He has some makeshift kind of car traverse type tunes, some nightclub pizzazz, some stuff like that, some good mixtape bops with Lil Wayne and some stuff like that. Lil Wayne completely eviscerates every song that he's on here. He's on here like 3 or 4 times, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that particular concept. The Young Money crew's on here. They do a pretty good job. They don't drop the ball. It's pretty good. almost compilation like project. Was just a good concept to kind of get some of these. There's definitely some highlighted ones. There's some aspects as far as stepping out. Gudda Gudda is a pretty excitable dude, despite the fact that he doesn't have like the shrill kind of high octane energy. Not like that's a problem. It's just kind of the pitch that you get some vanilla kind of dap and entry kind of stuff as far as like the opening moments and just in between kind of more mingling, just the initial kind of mingling and marinating type moments of being in a nightclub and places like that, house parties, just standard pitches and night venues and just outings as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Just some good stuff to kind of have there. So in terms of the future, like Gudda Gudda dropped a couple projects like in 2021. He really has taken a break. He was there throughout the early 2010s and the late 2000s, I'd have to suppose. But the last project where I really checked in with him was like in early 2013, something like that. It was called like Red Rum, something like that. And then he dropped maybe he dropped a mixtape in 2018. I know he's dropped at least 2 projects since 2013, maybe 3, something like that. But I have to suppose I'm going to get to some more of these. Pretty much the next one I'd have to review is going to be like Guddaville. Pretty much like the next one I'm going to review is going to be Guddaville 3. So it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that. So I do recommend this project quite a bit, and I would have to say to fuck with it and download it. I mean, it may not have like the sheer full blown. Some of this project may not have the sheer full blown immediate impact, but it's definitely worth investing in if you do like Southern hip hop and mixtape type fare, especially out of the early 2010s. It's just got some electric type stuff within certain senses. It's just got some electric type stuff that you just have to dig a little bit deeper for, but it is worth it.